Hello everyone, welcome back to another Friday, another casual champion review. I don't really know why OBS wasn't working, but now I got it working. It's back. So today we're playing Kennen. We're playing the little rat, little lightning rat. I can't say I'm overly excited about playing Kennen because, to be frank, he's kind of boring. Which one's the one where he there? How is this still in the game? It just woo. You know what's also funny though? Fan art section. Yes, look at all them lightning rats that they make all the rules. Oh, it's beautiful. Very surprised with the amount of Kennen artwork that there is. It's all fantastic. I am very excited to see what you fellas do with Kha'Zix and Kog'Maw, Kled, and God, there's so many good champions coming up, you guys. I have to endure Kennen today, but they Buzz, you're awesome, amazing. Thank you so much. I also remember to turn on the little dancing goobers this time because I realized I forgot to put them on last time, and I got a couple comments. I always get comments whenever I forget to put on the dancing goobers, but they're here. I just have to remember to do it. And I don't know how this is going to go. I have not played Kennen in quite a long time. I used to play him a bit more back in the day, but it was primarily playing mid lane. And I wanted to play mid lane Kennen today, but such is life. I got put into top lane because nobody likes playing this role. So Kennen is actually quite an important character to the mythos of Ionia, though you wouldn't think that at first. Like all Yordles, he was born in Bandle City, but unique from them, he yearned for more. So he started going out into the world of Runeterra seeking balance and harmony until he eventually discovered Ionia and witnessing the people there encountering countless wars and then rebuilding afterwards, he grew fascinated by them and wanted to stay to study them, which I got to thinking, that's Skarner. That's like exactly what Skarner's doing, except replace Ionia with Ishtal. But instead of taking it over like a tyrannical dictator, Kennen decided to make Ionia his permanent home so he could continue to study and admire these people. And he defended them from outside threats, also kind of a lot like Skarner, except instead of Voidborn and outside influences of Shurima, he battled mostly spiritual threats. So he'd fight incursions from the spirit realm alone, because I believe he was the only one that could, because he's a spirit, technically. All Yordles are spirits. But he never really learned why they were happening in the first place. So he tried to go on a bit of a soul search and eventually discovered a small order in Ionia known as the Kinku. And it was just perfect for him because, oh my god, speaking of Skarner, I forgot I have a Skarner for jungle. That's kind of, that makes sense. That's poetic. Well, I may have a Skarner for a jungler, but that doesn't mean I have a jungler. And this Kinku order was, like Kennen, dedicated to protecting the balance of Ionia, specifically protecting the balance between not just the physical realm, but the spirit realm as well. And this order was led by two. It was led by the Eye of Twilight, who handled equilibrium between the spirit realm and the mortal realm, and the Fist of Shadow, who acted as, I believe the expression is pruning the tree, they say, and it's meant to be, they're an assassin who basically, well, there's bad people in the mortal realm, so let's snip him out of life. So Kennen looked at this order and thought, well, these guys are looking pretty good, but there's a chance that one of them might dominate the other. You know, the aggression of the Fist of Shadow might overtake the Isle of Twilight, or vice versa. So they might need a third member of their party to help keep them in line. And Kennen, as humble as he is, thought, well, you know, I just so happen to be a creature of both the physical realm and the spiritual realm, so, you know, I would be perfect for the task of being the new head honcho of the Kinku, and they gladly agree. So Kennen became the first, and as far as I know, only Heart of the Tempest, because Kennen can't really die because Yordles are immortal. And his job is basically just to keep the Kinku in check. He's designed to have the Fist of Shadow, Eye of Twilight, make sure they agree on stuff and be the final judgment. Over time, though, Kennen noticed a growing rift between the Kinku and the people of Ionia, that they acted very swiftly and judgmentally, almost like a secret cabal, which, I mean, they kind of were, but it doesn't help they also wore masks all the time to hide their identity, and Kennen thought, well, I should probably be able to connect with my people some more, so I'm going to use, or I'm going to take off my mask. But he's still a ninja, so it's still got like the ninja mask, so I don't know what that's meant to be point out in his story, like he's a super empathetic person, when the rest of his story and lore and personality paints him as this super serious, all about rules character. It's really weird. And so Kennen just kind of basically existed in the world for ever since then. There was the Shen comic. I don't recall if he even showed up in that thing. You would have thought he would because he's trying to keep Shen and Akali in line, and those were two central characters to that story. I know he definitely feels guilty because he pushed the previous Fist of Shadow, which was Akali's mom, to say, oh, make Akali the next Fist of Shadow, and then Akali just up and left. And so nowadays, Kennen just exists as the Heart of the Tempest. He's just the head honcho of the Kinku, trying to keep balance and tranquility in Ionia, though that is growing increasingly more difficult with the Order of Shadow, with the fracturing Kinku, with the Navori Brotherhood, with the Vastaya back and forth, with the Noxian invasion. There's a lot of problems going on in Ionia. Oh, that's... Am I crazy? Well, Skarner's crazy. I swear Kennen... His ult used to have a, Oh! Ignore that. I swear Kennen's ult used to have a big cast time, didn't it? Am I misremembering? I really haven't played this character in a long time. I gotta be honest, there's a lot of characters I've talked about in League that act more as side characters that I wish would get more in-depth and more stories, more character interactions. But with Kennen, I'm like, I don't know if I really care. I think he kind of works as just a side character. He's just the begrudging manager. Also... Okay, hold on. I gotta wait for the cooldown to come back up. Yeah, I really don't like that. They updated Kennen's particle effects ages ago. He used to just turn into a big ball of lightning, and I thought that was a lot cooler looking. It's like, you know, Samus's little morph ball, but now they just made him... They just floats there awkwardly. Most of the time, particle effects updates are amazing, but I feel like with Kennen and with Brand as well, they made his particle effects way too clean. I don't really like it. I think the older particle effects looked a bit better. At least in Kennen, it had a bit more character. Which again, character is not something he has much of. He is just the ninja man. He is technically very important to the lore of Ionia. That's just because Riot says so. He hasn't really had any kind of major impact on the current world of Runeterra, just that he was around there since the beginning. He helped keep the Kinku in line, and then they just kind of forgot about him. Which I think is also segues really well into the next part, which is his design. And I will talk about default Kennen's design in a bit. But I do think it is absolutely hilarious because I'm sure many of you remember my begrudging hate of what Riot did to Corki, where when they added all those Yordles to Wild Rift, they added Corki, Lulu, Tristana, and Teemo all at the same time in Wild Rift, and they gave Corki this absolutely wonderful new design. They had a cinematic starring all four of them together. It was great. Everybody loved it. It was so good. And then they didn't use that design for Corki. Like, it doesn't make any sense. But then I think people also forget that Kennen was also part of that lineup. Kennen's also about to be a part of the Afterlife right now. They had that whole bundle of different Yordles being added to the game, and Kennen was there. He was a part of that bundle, but he got, like, no promotion at all. He showed up in a couple group shot splashers, but for some reason he was omitted from the cinematic. And the same thing happened to him that happened with Corki, except they didn't make a new one. They just used the Awaken design from the Awaken cinematic, which is still a fantastic redesign that I will talk about in a bit. But it is insane to me that, again, they used this excellent updated design. One, they didn't have to design themselves. It was in Awaken. Then they used it in the promotionals art. They used it in the group splash art. Here's the new Kennen. And then you look at the actual in-game model, and it's the same old Kennen. Why? I don't get it, Riot. Like, he went through all this effort to add this new one. It's just false advertising at this point. Yeah, like, there was no cast time there. I swear that he used to stop in place whenever he did it. Please. Oh, please. Oh. That felt so unsatisfying. Because the big problem, I think, with modern Kennen is that he's supposed to be this kind of serious, calm, tranquil guy, and unfortunately, he looks a bit too silly, which I think the redesign in Awaken was fantastic in that. He still has the purples, but it's mixed in with these blacks and bandages and armor pieces, so it makes him look more like an actual ninja, without the current design where it just kind of looks like, how do it looks like pajamas. It's not broken up at all. It's all basically one color palette with a couple bits of gold in there. It looks so goofy. And I know it kind of goes against with what his character they said in the lore was like, well, I removed a mask to make myself look more nice to my people, but it's also, they didn't even bother doing that. And the redesign, I think, helps the other side of his story, where he's supposed to be this kind of super serious head honcho of the Kinku Order, and they changed it so his mask is now black. It covers up more of his face, and they made his eyes a lot more glowing and bright, so you get these piercing blue eyes in this face of darkness covered by the hood, the bandages wrapping up his ears as opposed to the two random ropes they got around his ears currently, which I don't know why that's there. Those are just gonna slip off the moment he tilts slightly. And a bit of an ironic twist, which I've talked about how well LOR has improved a lot of characters. I don't think they improved Kennen. In fact, I think they might have made him a little worse. Like, my big hope was two things. One, that they would use the Awakened redesign, which they did, so that's good. But my other hope was that they would change Kennen to be this more self-serious character, move away from the kind of gremlin-y voice that, I mean, I love gremlin characters, but this kind of, I am the silent night, I am the storm, like I don't know. It never felt right for me for the character he's trying to portray. So I was very excited to see what they would do with him in LOR. And unfortunately, they just kind of doubled down on that. In fact, most of his dialogue in LOR is about... Oh. 80 carry players, I swear, man. Dies just instant surrender. In LOR, they made him weirdly obsessed with moves. I mean, half his dialogue is like, oh, what technique did you learn this week, my student? I must protect my student. And now you will see my ultimate technique. My final move here is this new technique. I'm like, shut up, Kennen. Shut the fuck up. LOR has had this weird issue where sometimes when they introduced new characters like Kennen, they would... all their followers would be just weird copies or alternate variations of them. You know, with Galio, they had all those random Galio followers. I mean, with Nami, it made sense. The Mirai people, sure. But with Kennen, having his several Kinku students be different elemental master Yordles, it's cool. But doesn't that make his role kind of redundant? Like, I thought the whole point of Kennen being in the Kinku, or being the Heart of the Tempest, was because he had the unique perspective of being an Ionian Kinku Order member. Like, because he was from the Spirit Realm, he had that unique perspective. But now there's just tons of them fighting back, which everyone thought was a Void Monster, right? Like in that cinematic, or in his art, everyone thought that was a Void Monster, but it was just some spirit. Oh my goodness, speaking of Corky, I just realized, like, all these characters that I keep talking about are in the game I'm playing right now. I wish Hecarim was it, though. I don't know. Ken's in a weird position where he's a champion that I don't really want to see more of, even though I think he could use it. Like a visual update at minimum, I think, just to make these absolutely janky, horrible looking animations a bit better, the model quality a bit nicer, maybe add some voice lines that aren't just about him learning different fighting techniques. But I think if I had to pick between him and champions like Zillion or Nidalee, or even champions that don't even look as horrible like Master Yi but have a great glow up, I'd pick all of those champions before Kennen, because he's just a character I don't really care about, and I don't think most League players care about either. I think most people forget who this character even is because he's such a niche pick. Which, getting into that, he has carved out a niche for himself, and to me, that niche is ranged Amumu. They're both tiny little Yordles that run into the middle of the entire enemy team with a big, heavy CC ultimate. Except Amumu is a lot more functionable without his ult. Kennen was designed around his ult. And because Kennen was designed so many years ago, back when Riot cared about putting in champion power budgets and not overloading a champion's E ability as if it was an ult, Yone, Kennen feels kind of spindly and pathetic without it because it is such a powerful, massive, team-wide ult that crowd controls all the enemy champions, does a massive burst of damage, and then it's over, and it's like, well, what do you do? But I will save the day. Look at that. 5v1, baby, and I get a kill. Again, that's him being a victim of when he was designed back when champions had actual power budgets. So because they put so much power into his ult, they had to dial back everything else about him. So he just throws a tiny skill shot. He has maybe a stun if he lands all of his abilities. But it's also because of that he has a lot of really obvious weaknesses. The whole point of Kennen is that you need to jump into the middle of the enemy team, but whereas Fiddle can jump over walls, Malphite can ult, blink at a distance, Amumu has his bandage toss, Kennen just has to use the E and run at them. But that's why you have Proto Belt, right? Proto Belt and Flash, which again, back then, champions used to have obvious weaknesses that would need to be covered up by summoner spells or by items. And unfortunately, the entirety of League of Legends has evolved around Kennen, and most champions these days, damn it, most champions these days do not need items to cover up their weaknesses. That was the whole thing with Udyr, right, before he got reworked, because right before, or I shouldn't say right before, it was like 6 months, but at the start of the year before he was getting reworked, you know, Udyr was a meme champion, everyone thought he was terrible and stupid, he couldn't do anything. But then Riot introduced all the new items, and suddenly Udyr was the best character in the entire game. And why is that? That's because the new items, it's because the new items covered up Udyr's weaknesses. And that kind of thing is happening with Kennen. What? Okay. And the same thing hasn't really happened with Kennen, where he needs Proto Belt and often he needs Zhonya's just to be functional. And it sucks for me, apparently. I think that for a character who is so overly dependent on their ult to be useful, the fact that Malignance is such a heavy mana item and Kennen doesn't have mana, therefore buying that item is a complete waste of money and waste of stats is criminal. Like, it feels like if that wasn't a mana item, Malignance would be a 100% shoo-in for this guy. And so many other stuff too, like Luden's big burst item, Rod of Ages, nice tanky item because you want to jump in the middle of the enemy team. Like, all these mana items feel so perfect for Kennen, and yet he can't build them because, well, because we had to give all the ninjas and Lee Sin energy. I'm doing it. I'm doing Kennen things. I'm so bored. Like, at least on Amumu, I dive in the middle of the enemy team. It feels like I'm a bit more proactive. With Kennen, I'm just kind of sitting back and waiting to use my ult, else I'm useless. I mean, he's very straightforward in that way, right? Like, I always talk about how I enjoy the more simple champions, and Kennen does have his skill expression to him. Just to me, it's like, a lot of times, the skill-expressive mages are some of the most unfun characters in the game. What the hell are you doing, Garen? But really all I could think of while playing out this game is just, man, I get to play Kha'Zix and Kindred and Kled and Kog'Maw. Like, so many champions I love are right around the corner, but I'm stuck here playing this rat. Which actually brings me to another thing that sucks about Kennen, is his skins. Because I think when the best skin you have on offer is most likely Infernal, you're probably doing something wrong. Super Kennen is fine, it's whatever, and he's got, what, Blood Moon? That's all okay. But Kennen also holds the record for some of the worst skins in the entire game, with Deadpool Kennen, or Deadly Kennen, and Swamp Master Kennen, which, back in the day when they had the really old splash arts, and Swamp Master Kennen used to have a different splash art. I believe the one in the League client right now is the Chinese alternate one, and they did that for a while. They'd bring over some of the Chinese splash arts to the NA server, or the global servers. Before then, Default Kennen, Deadly Kennen, and Swamp Master Kennen had all the exact same artwork with just the colors mixed around. Like, well, that's, you know, that's what the skins are. They're just color swaps. They're glorified chromas. But it was just so funny, you know, to scroll through the client like, wow, here's purple Kennen, red Kennen, green Kennen. What riveting cosmetics on offer. And I don't think really any of the skins he's going to get in the near future are going to look that great, because his model is way too clunky. Again, that dance animation, I mean, the walk animation, everything about Kennen is just so clunky and old. All I can say is that I have not really enjoyed my time with Kennen again. He's not abhorrent like some champions in terms of design or character model. I mean, his character model is pretty bad, but he's not quite at the same level as some other champions. He's filled out a niche that he holds all his own, again, being ranged Amumu, but there isn't really a character in the game that plays quite exactly like Kennen. He's just kind of boring. I think the game has evolved beyond him at this point. Same with Ionia in his lore, where the characters like Shen and Zed and Akali have all grown without him. I think that'll be the end of this week's Casual Champion Review. Next week, we get to look at one John Bugman. I'm very excited for John Bugman. I haven't played him in a while. So thank you fellas for coming to this Casual Champion Review. I'll see you next week. KWG, damn it. Okay, well, thank you fellas. I'll see you in the next one. All right? Goodbye. Technique!